And boom, it looks like we are live. Welcome, everybody. It is the Visto show for December the 18th, 2020. My name is Josh Shacknow, CEO of Visto.ai and Canadian immigration lawyer, and I am extremely happy to be joined by good friend and director of North Technology People, Adam Delgado. Adam, thanks very much for coming on the show today.
Yeah, welcome, Josh. Thanks for having me, mate. Looking forward to today's show.
Awesome, absolutely. And we will hopefully have some people tuning in live as well. For those of you who are tuning in live, we definitely like to make these shows a little bit more interactive. So feel free to drop us a comment, drop us a question in the chat, or just say hello, or feel free to watch and not say much at all. What we're going to be talking about today is I'll give a really quick update on any of the big items in the immigration field. And then what I also want to do is go in depth with Adam to talk about a lot of things we can think about related to employment in Canada. Things like how are Canadian companies acting throughout COVID? How has COVID affected their processes? Tips on how to be, applying to different Canadian companies and all that kind of stuff. Adam, can you maybe just give us a quick intro, just a little bit about you and North Technology People before we get started?
Yeah, certainly, Josh. Like I said, mate, thanks for having us. Happy to help and kind of contribute to the community. So North Technology People is my recruitment business. We founded in January. I actually got my permanent residency myself a few days before incorporating the business, and I can say that it was a very painful and challenging and lengthy process. So obviously we met post me getting my permanent residency, but definitely think Visto could have certainly helped me in my journey to kind of become a Canadian permanent residency. So yeah, look, North Technology People, we're a technical recruitment agency dedicated solely to the Canadian markets, and my specialist focus is on artificial intelligence, machine learning, data science, software engineering, and analytics. We do contract and permanent, hyper focused on the Canadian market as well. So nothing really south of the border. It's all about what's happening and hot in Canadian tech.
Awesome. And I'm looking forward to getting deep into that. Adam, really quickly from the immigration side, it's actually been quite a quiet week. So the week before last, we had the latest express entry draw. We had a 469 draw, the second time that it was a score of 469, and the second time that Canada invited 5,000 people to apply through express entry, the skilled worker program. This is really good news for anybody interested, whether they're within Canada or outside of Canada, because it is a clear sign that IRCC, Immigration Canada, is continuing to invite lots and lots of people for PR. We'll be keeping a close eye on whether there is one more draw next week. Typically, they do a draw every 2 weeks inviting people to apply. So they are due for one next week. That being said, sometimes the holidays can throw something off. As soon as the draw happens, of course, Visto will be posting about all of them on our socials and everything like that. So keep an eye out for that. Quick note for international students, the borders continue to remain open if you have your study permit approval and if your school is listed on the approved COVID readiness plan list. So Canadian colleges and universities, they need to have been approved by their respective provinces with a proper COVID readiness plan. If they are on that list and you receive your study permit approval, you can travel to Canada, which is obviously really exciting news. If you need more help on any of that, make sure to check us out at Visto.ai. We have a free platform that will help you prepare for express entry, prepare for study permits, prepare for a whole bunch of other permits as well. But we'll leave that to you folks on your own. Adam, let's start the chat about recruitment in Canada. Can you tell us, if you can summarize in a reasonably short answer, what was 2020 like for you, right, as a recruiter in Canada?
Yeah, look, recruitment in 2020 in Canada has been an absolute roller coaster. So I don't think anybody really predicted what was going to happen. It's kind of nothing like this has happened before. It was around February, March that everything really started to kind of take hold. In mid-March, my roles, I had about 6 roles, went to 0. Everybody was like, everything's on hold. We don't know what's happening. In the last 2 to 3 months, probably actually around June, July, we started to see some of the banks start to release some of their projects and have that approval. So I think that's slowly given a little bit of traction with the job market and the increased job numbers. And now kind of wrapping up towards the end of the year, I think everybody's just shelving everything but for January, to be honest. I think everybody wants to have 2020 in the rear view. So I think things are starting to slow down. But Q1 generally as a whole, always a very, very busy year internationally for the recruitment market, specifically because people have put everything on hold for December. January comes online and it's like, goodness, we've got a lot of work to do. We've got a lot of projects to kick off. So hopefully we're moving into a bit of an increase in demand.
Absolutely. And so can you talk a little bit about how these things evolved from, let's say, March to now, right? I would expect, in March, COVID hits, a lot of kind of freezes and stuff like that across the board. What did that kind of evolution look like in terms of Canadian companies being willing to hire again? Did a lot of companies freeze to begin with? And what has kind of happened since, right? Do they continue to be frozen? Any information you can share now, especially as we head into 2021? Are we starting to see more company, or are more conversations popping up? Is there more interviews happening? Stuff like that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, sure. So I think what we found originally was that there was a big panic at the start of the year. Nobody really knew what the back end of the year was going to look like. So a lot of positions were put on hold. In saying that, though, I think COVID and 2020 has really been split into, from an employer perspective, a number of different categories. So you had companies that could not survive. They went bust, razor thin margins. They lost a few accounts. And they went under. I'm very, very unfortunate. That's part of the recession. So you have that camp where they basically went under. You have this middle ground, which I think a lot of the banks and enterprise businesses and some of the tech businesses who were sitting on the fence, they're like, we have enough money and roadmap and funding to keep us going through the next 2 years, but we don't want to approve anything. We need to now adapt to a remote workforce. We've got a lot of stuff going on internally, so recruitment wasn't at the front of mind. It was very much, let's put it on hold and see how things pan out.
Right.
And then you have this third category, which I find a lot of the tech world would fit in. So these were companies that had, if you got 15 million, 5 million, whatever, seed or series funding towards the back, say, quarter of 2019, you had all this money to burn. So COVID or no COVID, you still needed to grow a business. You needed to attract users, build your platform, scale, grow the team. So I think this final category, a lot of the tech industry fell into. It's like, well, COVID or no COVID, we gotta get on. This is potentially even an opportunity for us.
Right.
So I think, it's really been kind of segmented into those three areas. I think on the topic of VC money, I've subscribed to Crunchbase, which I think is a really great platform to see what's happening internationally in the tech world. Every day during COVID, you'd see, this company's got 10 million funding, 15 million. They've just gone to IPO. I think a lot of companies, Airbnb and Uber, or maybe not Uber, but a lot of companies this year have kind of switched into that IPO state. So it's roller coaster in a nutshell. I think moving into next year, it'll be pretty interesting as well to see how Q1, I think if Q1 progresses forward and is quite a positive month, I think that'll really set things up for the rest of the year, 2021. And now, obviously, with the vaccine starting to happen as well, I think that's positive news for the industry as a whole.
Absolutely. Yeah, and it's interesting too. That's one element that I hadn't really thought of, which is, hiring can obviously depend on the external forces, COVID, et cetera. But also, like you said, if a company's raised a bunch of money, they got to do something with it, right? So maybe that's almost like a good proxy for those who are looking to apply to Canadian companies or US companies. Find the ones that have recently done a raise, because they're probably more likely to be hiring. Can we, so with that in mind, let's segue more to the employees' kind of perspective and tips and tricks that you can give to them. But firstly, I'm curious to know, what have you been seeing from the employee side over the last 8 to 10 months? Are people, were prospective people looking to jump companies? Are they more conservative? Are they sticking to where they are a little bit more? Have people been worried? How has it been different dealing with employees or potential, future employees, just people who are looking for jobs this year compared to previous years?
Yeah, no, really good question. I think it's very personal. I think this whole pandemic, you can sit in those camps of employers where, oh, we're going to go full steam ahead, or let's kind of play it cautiously. I think that ties in very well with the candidate market as well. You have people who are like, well, I can do my job remotely. This is a great opportunity. I'm still going to open the door when opportunity comes knocking. Literally in the last couple of days, I was trying to headhunt a candidate. He looked really great for my role. Said, hey, Joe or Jane, how you doing? Got this opportunity, blah, blah. Said, look, Adam, sounds like a great opportunity. I just don't want to make a move at the moment. It's an uncertain market, so it kind of falls into those two categories. You know, people, yes, happy to look, or actually want to play things a little closer to my chest, which is completely understandable. On the point too, I think usually what we see in a recession market. I was recruiting back in Australia when the 2009 GFC hit, and what we saw immediately was a huge decline in the number of job roles, and then slowly as things started to move back into a positive state, the first indication of a kind of return to normalcy was around the contract market, because there's less kind of responsibility on the employer. It's not such a big bite, you know, we got to pay 130,000 for a permanent person. We're committing to that for 2 to 3 years, where if we just hire someone for a 3-month contract at whatever, 50, 70, 80, $100 an hour, that's a lot more manageable. So usually we start to see an increase in the contract role. So I think hopefully in Q1 next year, we start to see those contract roles come on. And from some of the research that has been done internationally, we're already starting to see, even though we are it's still in the thick of it, we are starting to see some markets increase their contract numbers, which is always a positive sign for the job market as a whole.
Right. So would you advise then, if someone was, whether they're inside Canada or outside of Canada, but they are looking for jobs with Canadian companies, should they almost be willing to take that approach of, you know, offering up services as a contractor? How does somebody balance that, right? Because obviously from an individual standpoint, the, you know, clear benefits of full-time employment, how would you recommend somebody approaches that?
Yeah, so I think if you're on the market looking for work, looking at both contract and permanent opportunities, probably going to double the chances of securing a role, because they're two entirely different markets. And from an employer perspective, they're treated quite differently as well. As we mentioned, there's a lot more commitment from an employer with regards to your employment insurance, with regards to all the overheads and your insurances and benefits and such. Whereas a contractor, hey, here's $500 a day, do the job. If you don't come in, you don't get paid. If you're sick, you don't get paid. So it's a lot easier for people to kind of manage.
Absolutely. Okay, so let's shift towards applying for jobs, just in general. Obviously, it's become a lot harder, right? Because the you know, fewer jobs available, right? Fewer companies willing to hire. What would you say to somebody who's outside of Canada specifically? They're looking to come to Canada. They want to come to Canada for work. How should they even kind of approach this from a mental standpoint, right? Because it's got to be one of the hardest times ever to be able to do that. Is it worth trying? How should people be thinking about this? How should they be approaching it if they are dead set on coming to Canada?
Yeah, well, I think I often get contacted and I have applications for our posted job positions from international candidates to say, hey, Adam, love to move to Canada. The first thing I ask, do you have work rights in Canada? If the answer is yes, great. Let's do the dance. Send me a CV. Let's set up a chat. When are you planning to relocate? Blah, blah, blah. If the answer is no, I do not have work rights in Canada, I've referred a couple of people, as I said, in the last weeks to Visto, and I said, hey, look, check out Visto. If you don't have work rights, this platform is going to make your life a lot easier. So, you know, kind of would recommend them there. But if they don't have work rights, my clients are, look, they're probably not going to entertain an interview with them. We have started to see an increase in the flexibility from employers as to work from home. And similarly, I think as well with the remote workforce, now that COVID has completely shifted the market, companies now have to have some type of work from home function and kind of offering to their employees to stay in business. So I think that shift has pushed employers to start thinking, okay, hey, maybe look, we will look internationally. We will look, if we're based in Toronto or BC or Winnipeg or wherever, hey, let's open it up to Canada as a whole. So I think that there has certainly been some positives to come from this whole COVID pandemic, you could say.
Right.
And that's certainly one of them.
Right. Now, what would you say? I mean, it's very good information to know, right? For someone who's outside of Canada, they're looking to find a job here. It's probably a little bit disheartening, right, to hear, which is if you don't have work authorization, it's going to be very hard. Have you heard of, or what would you suggest that somebody does? And this is, a difficult question to answer, but a lot of our users are outside of Canada and they're in that chicken and egg scenario where they can't get work authorization for a variety of reasons, right? They're not eligible, their score's not high enough, et cetera, et cetera. They can't get a job because they don't have work authorization. Now, for some people, the really harsh reality is that Canada might not be a great option. But for those that maybe, are super dead set on it, they have a great resume, they're strong, I mean, in your case, we'll say they're strong, strong technical background. What do you recommend they do, right? Like, should they, maybe most of your clients don't necessarily look to sponsor, but do you have any advice on like other things they could do, or maybe ways to find other companies to apply to? Or the other, I mean, I'm making this already a long enough question to try and answer, but if they are dead set on applying anyways to companies, what, let me save that question for next. Let's tackle this one first, and then I'll get to kind of the resume and prep stuff second.
Yeah, sure. So look, when kind of somebody's outside of Canada, chicken or egg, what do I do? I think the first thing is definitely you got to really want to kind of go through this whole process. It is a lengthy, time-consuming process. I would definitely say advise, look, having some type of work authorization is going to increase your chances. And then it becomes about, hey, getting yourself here. I would again recommend that it's going to be essentially, as a candidate, you want to increase your chances of securing a job role compared to the hundreds of other people that are out there. So you want to be doing things to increase your chances, like you increasing your PR score or whatever that kind of specific number is. You want to be increasing your chances of being a successful hire. One's having your PR, second is being in the country, and then kind of look at different ways and kind of get a little bit creative. So if you're in, say, Australia, I'm Australian by birth, a citizen, Canadian permanent residency. If I'm in Australia and I want to come to Canada, I have to try and think about, well, how am I going to make myself appealing? If I can do some remote contract work for a Canadian company, that's going to look appealing on my application when I send my profile out to job opportunities, to say to my employer, hey, look, I may still be in Australia, but I'm actually doing some ad hoc contract work through Fiverr, through TopTool, through VanHack, all these kind of platforms and websites that enable remote work internationally. So I think having, even if you're not in Canada, having something to say, hey, I do have some work experience. One of the biggest challenges when employers look at people who have recently migrated to Canada, they say, oh, well, it's another challenge. You've got the work rights, you've got the experience. You don't have the Canadian experience, though. I can see how that can be really disheartening and challenging, being here on the ground as how you don't have you don't have Canadian experience. To employers that say that to people, I would... it's not the right way to play that hand. If somebody can communicate effectively, because that often comes down to it as well. Like, do you have the communication skills to work in a technical production environment? Can you have high-level discussions? What if you're stressed? One day you've got your code to deliver, something's not working. You need to now communicate to your team or your manager or your architect, how are we going to fix this problem, what the core problem is. So communication obviously is huge. If people have the technical skills, they're here on the ground, they have the work rights, I would say that, don't be disheartened. Reach out to recruiters as well. Introduce yourself and say, hey, look, I'm on the ground, I have the skills. would love to the opportunity to explore how we might work together. Another thing I might recommend too is kind of taking that contract road, because as I said, as the economy starts to shift, hopefully into a more positive state in Q1 2021, there will be a lot of companies hiring. If you cannot provide your services and are only looking at permanent work, I think that's going to be difficult and challenging. Obviously, there's some significant investment from a candidate to legally be allowed to work as a contractor. There's a company, I'll find the website link in a minute. I think it's called Founded or something like that. Basically, you plug in your details and they do the whole process of incorporating your contract business for you. Super easy, as a versus paying $2,000-$3,000 to a lawyer. You could spend I think it's about $400-$500 to incorporate your contract business, and then you can knock on the door of businesses and say, hey, I see you're hiring for a contract front end full stack UX UI designer. I'm available. I can offer you a competitive rate. If they have done some project work on Fiverr and says, hey, look, here's my portfolio of the work I've done. Let's kind of have a conversation. I'd recommend that people really kind of put the consultant hat on when they are kind of, if you do get a bite, it's now about kind of qualifying the opportunity and asking those kind of really fact-finding questions about, hey, what is the problem? What is this role going to be doing on a day-to-day basis? And then obviously you want to kind of have your skill set complement that type of role.
Right. I think that's great advice. The other reason why I think the contracting approach is so great is one of those contracting clients may very well turn into your employer down the road, right? You start on a 3-month contract. Next thing you know, they extend it. Next thing you know, they're like, we can't live without this person. Let's hire them. So I think that's great. My next question is about if there are people applying. Can we talk about, and this doesn't even have to be COVID specific, but just some general tips, especially for those applying from outside of the country. How can they make their resume pop, right? We have guides, we have templates, we actually have a free guide and template on how to improve your resume within the Visto portal, which you can get for free at visto.ai. But I would imagine now, especially more than ever, there needs to be something that can make you stand out a little bit extra too, if you want to overcome that hurdle. What are some things that really impress you or that you look for in resumes that you think would really help when people are applying to, whether it be contract jobs, full-time jobs, all that kind of stuff?
Yeah, so I think there's kind of like 3 categories of resume that I see. One is too much. One is, it's like the 3 bears, you know what I mean? There's too much words, there's medium words, and there's not a lot of words. We'll start on the other side here. When I get a CV and it's like 7-8 pages, if I get 20 of those CVs, hand in my heart,
wow.
Yeah, I do not have time to read every single word on your CV if it is 6 pages. I don't even have time to do it if it's 1 page, to be honest. As a recruiter, you look at a CV, you spend, I'm going to say 15 seconds, because I honestly, even scrolling through LinkedIn when I'm looking at profiles, 15 seconds, if in the first 15 seconds as a recruiter, each to their own, but if I can't, kind of assess your technical skills and capabilities to do the role, you're probably not the right person, and I'm going to move straight on to the next person. So as a candidate, what you want to do is really stand out. So I want to come back to how to stand out in a moment, and that kind of transitions to the 3 bear story. So we've got 6 pages, 7 pages, too much. A lot of people go into high level and low level detail. I was working on this project, and there's a whole paragraph on the project, and it's just a big block of text. I'm not going to read that. Sorry if there's a lot of people out there who have done it, but it's not a valuable use of my time. What is going to be valuable, though, is if I find someone, they look good, I'm going to call that person up straight away and say, hey, Josh, got your CV here. It looks really interesting. Let's talk. Let's discuss and qualify things. So we've got too much, and we've got what most people are doing at the moment, which is kind of 2 to 3 pages. It's kind of boiling down this 6-7 page CV and halving it. Usually what that looks like, name, contact details, LinkedIn profile right up the top. And then what I really like to see, the first thing I want to see when I look at a CV is technical skills. What technical skills do you have? And what a lot of people do, because they know that this is what recruiters and hiring managers will do. They'll look at the technical skills and say, does this person have the technical? What a lot of candidates do is they'll just throw all the buzzwords on there, and the CV looks great. React, Angular, Node, Postgres, Apollo, Java, .NET, C#, AWS, DevOps, CI/CD, and you look at it and you think, wow, this candidate is an absolute gem. I'm going to call them up, and then I qualify. Hey, this role is working with React, Node, and Postgres, or React. The role I have on at the moment is a senior full stack. It's working with React, Node, and GraphQL. One of the first questions I ask this candidate: do you have commercial development experience with these technologies? If they say yes, fantastic. I know you're working with it on a day-to-day, or you have done. If they have not, I'll ask them, why did you put it on your CV? Like, and the reason is exactly that. They want to get the call. So I would say some people kind of rate their skills as well. It's like, 5-star is current development experience. Maybe a 3 to 4 is like, yeah, I've worked on it, but it's been 6 to 12 months ago. 1 is like, maybe I did it at university, and 2 is kind of maybe I've played around with it at home or something on a home project. So we've got too much. We've got the middle bit, which is kind of half of that, and then we have what I'm starting to see, and I think is really, really great. It kind of takes the traditional CV and makes it like in a bit more of an experience. These CVs are one page. They're always one page. And they break it down, or maybe say 1 to 2 pages, but it is very, very high level. So they say job title. They will say, migration, migrating X to Y technology. They'll have the tech stack that they worked on, and they'll literally have it. It's more like they've designed a CV than just typed out a CV. So there's a lot of the formatting of it isn't, you don't do it in a Word document. I mean, I'm not very strong on the technical software side of things, but it looks like they've used some type of Illustrator. They've had like this nice little blue background. They might have a picture of themselves up here, some cool fonts, and but it has all the information I need to see. They'll have a technical assessment down the side, and basically the CV is less is more. And it looks really great. They'll have a GitHub profile down the bottom. They'll have their LinkedIn profile. Everything's hyperlinked. So if I do want more information, it's all there. And what I tell my candidates, you want the news headline, not the news article. So a couple of bullet points, maybe 3 bullet points per role. And you don't want like 7-sentence bullet points. You want very, very brief discussion or brief text about what you're doing. Break your role down into maybe 3 or 4 requirements. What am I doing every day? Those 4 things, that's all you want to put on your CV. If you're doing project work, maybe mention a couple of the most recent projects that are relevant to perhaps the role you're applying for. And that's pretty much it. I'd say, less is more. And certainly some type of coding. If you can send some code samples, that's going to be a really, really solid way for a hiring manager to look at your CV. They have to be a technical person, obviously, reviewing it. If you sent me code, I'd be like, cool. I don't know how to read this. Sorry. So I'd say that there's a few things there that they can do. In regards to the actual application process, this is where it gets really tough. You've got your magic 1-page CV, you've got your work rights, you're able to do contract work. How do you stand out from the 150 people that just applied for this role? I was looking at just this morning actually at a BMO role, and they said they were looking for a senior data scientist. They had posted the role 2 days ago and had 180 applications. I thought, wow, that recruiter on that role is going to, what they should be doing is spending the next insert period of time going through every single one of those CVs. If they're not, I don't know what they're being paid to do. Like that's if you're an internal recruiter, every day you should be looking at your new applications as the first thing you do when you get in the morning, the first thing, because we know that good people are not on the market for very long. If you've applied for 5 or 6 job roles and you're an internal recruiter at BMO, and you didn't get to that really top application until 5 or 6 or 7 or 2 weeks after they've applied for the role, chances are they're already in process with somebody else. They might already be off the market. So it's how you kind of stand out. It's a real tough one. What you can do is follow up with an email
Right.
You can connect with a person on LinkedIn to kind of be at the front of their mind a couple of times. So they might have looked at your CV once and thought, oh, I'm going to put this candidate in the maybe pile. And then maybe the next day they are on LinkedIn and they say, oh, look, Josh is he's connected with me saying, hey, Josh, I applied for the role. I think my skills are a fit because of X, Y, and Z. So you're kind of pitching yourself in. We'd love to have a conversation with you and find out a little bit more about the role. Let's connect. And then you can, again, follow up with an email. Again, this is stuff that it's effort. It takes a lot of time to do it. But if you have kind of like a bit of a process and you're doing this for every role you apply for, again, it's all about tweaking and increasing that percentage chance of securing the job. So if you have the great one pager, you're applying, you're following up on LinkedIn with an email, you're following up with an email. I'd recommend hunter.io is a great little free email grabber. So you can go onto a website, say I wanted your email address, Josh. I can go to Visto.ai. I can click the little Hunter Google extension, and it will literally pull up. It'll say it's Josh at Visto.ai. I have in brackets first at Visto.ai. So you basically get the handle of the email signature, right. And then you can kind of plug in the details from there and say, hey, Josh, just applied for your full stack role. I think I'm a great fit because of X, Y, Z. Would really be interested in speaking to you. And sometimes it is those extra little steps that make you stand out, and the hiring manager or the internal recruiter going through 150 might see your application pop up and think, oh wow, I haven't even gotten to this person yet, but I know they're good for the role, so I'm going to jump forward and find their CV in the 150, and I'm going to reach out to that person directly. So there are a couple of things that you can do. I'd also recommend people keep their LinkedIn profile up to date. That's a huge thing for a recruiter. If I can't see your skills, I'm not going to approach you about my job role because I don't know if you can do it. So keeping LinkedIn up to date, I would say, is super important.
Right. That was a whole whack of really helpful stuff, Adam, and really actionable stuff, which I think is most important. I think you hit it on the head when you said it takes some of these extra little things, right? I hear from a lot of people who, I applied to 1,000 jobs. I applied to, I sent my resume out 500 times. I don't actually think this is a quantity game, right? I think it's more of a quality game. Do those little extra things, even if it's for fewer applications, but make them stick out more. All you need is that one call, right? And who knows where it can go to. I see we do have some people sticking around. I have one more question. If anybody watching has some questions, feel free to throw them in the chat, and we will pass them along to Adam. Before we get to those, Adam, my last question is a little bit more about the environment itself. You were talking about, they post a job, they get 180 applications. Can you talk a little bit about how intense the technical market really is in Canada right now, especially, December or even like going into 2021? Is it super intense? Is it super competitive? That information is super interesting to hear because we don't see it on a day-to-day basis. Are companies being bombarded with applications? Just what's it like on the ground? Again, if anybody has some questions, feel free to throw them in the chat because we're going to take a few for Adam before wrapping up the show. But I'll turn it over to you, Adam, for that one.
Yeah, sure. So basically, your question was around the applications and such, and sorry, could you just kind of
in terms of numbers and like intensity and
that's right, yeah, sure.
How is it looking right now on the ground?
The job market at the moment, yeah. So look, as a whole, globally, not just here in Canada, there is a huge global talent tech shortage. And technology is always changing, which is what I love about it. It's there's always going to be a newer version or the next release, or completely new industries. AI, ML, data science completely exploded. I mean, it's been around for a long time, but it's only really in the last few years that it's big time now, and there's a lot of growth. And there is always going to be what's the next fringe technology. In the mid 2000s, it was cloud. Now it's all about data and artificial intelligence and cybersecurity. And then in the next 2 to 3 years, we're going to be talking about quantum technology and what that means. So because there's always these new sectors of technology being emerging, there's always going to be a shortage of people because it's so new, and people will move from as a data scientist, I want to move into the quantum space, but now there's that one shortage of person. There's still that, so there's always going to be a skills gap in technology. So if and when I ever have children, I'm going to say, you're a developer, son or daughter. It's where it's at. And on that point too, I think women. I was speaking to a group in the last couple of days called Women in AI. So as I said, I do a lot of AI stuff. Women in AI are a not-for-profit based across Canada and are really focused on leveling the numbers and kind of really endorsing and encouraging young women to move into the technology sector. I think the work that they do is extremely noble, and I'm happy to support them in any way I can. So a little plug for Women in AI there. But yeah, look, basically it's a very competitive market, even though it's candidate short. So yeah, I mean, look, if you are in tech, it's a great industry. The challenge is finding the right role at the right time, right candidate, right time, right job. You need all three of those things to have a successful placement, for the employer to hire and specifically for the candidate to get the job as well. If one of those things is off, the placement's not going to happen. You're not going to get the job because it's not the right time for the client. It's not, you're not based in locations out. So that's kind of the candidate problems there. I'm just trying to think what else is kind of valuable specifically for overseas people trying to migrate to Canada. I would say
we do also have a quick question that actually might fit in really well with this topic. So Joan says, hello, Adam, a question for you, please. Is it advisable to follow up on feedback from recruiters should one fail to nail it in the interview / fail to get the job? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so look, recruitment feedback is sometimes it's given, sometimes it's not. I actually had this conversation with one of my contacts on LinkedIn, and it got quite a bit of traction. The contact was saying, why is it that people aren't spending time giving feedback to every single candidate? The answer is sometimes we don't get it, basically. I had an experience literally in the last 48 hours with one of my clients. They're looking for a few full stack developers, and the feedback that I got, we had about 6-7 people do the test. And they progressed forward with one candidate, which is great, and fingers crossed we get an offer for that chap. But the feedback to some of the other candidates, which I'm really grateful that the engineering director put forward, was that some of the candidates didn't provide a README file, and that their skills were not to the level of expectation for a senior position. So for the candidates, I was able to tell everyone, say, look, unfortunately, it's a no-go, but the client has requested that. Well, actually, to be fair, they didn't put it in the code assessment. They didn't say, please provide a README file, which I kind of pushed back on the client and said, you guys didn't ask for it. So expecting candidates to do it is a bit touch and go. But they said, look, this isn't a school assignment. You're applying for a job in a professional company. The expectation is that as a developer, you want the person reviewing your code to have the best experience. So I was able to provide that feedback to the candidate. And a lot of people are like, thank you. Thank you for telling me this. It's really insightful. So the question was specifically about, should the candidate follow up with the recruiter to get feedback?
Or I think it was as well following up on feedback. So maybe, or I don't know, maybe we can interpret that both ways. Should they follow up for feedback? And 100%. If they get feedback, should they then follow up?
100%, yeah. Because look, as a recruiter, so say I get a job role and I talk to 10 candidates and I send 5 of them forward on, let's say 1st of December, just make up a date. So I send 5 people on the 1st of December, and I don't hear back from the client for that whole work week. And then I still know that the candidates are there and they're submitted and I don't have feedback. But the 5 candidates don't know that. And I tell my candidates, when I have feedback, I will get in touch with you. Whether it's good news or bad news, as soon as I hear back, I'll let you know. From a candidate perspective, if you're waiting and it's been 1 week, Adam hasn't got in touch with you, and now it's the 2nd week now, still no feedback from the client. Obviously, as the recruiter, I'm going to follow up and be like, hey, what's going on with those 5 candidates? But there is no harm in the candidates following up with a recruiter. Quick email, hey, Adam, haven't heard from you, ? What's going on? Thanks. And that's a prompt for me to say, hey, look, really sorry, haven't heard back. I'll let you know when I hear anything. It's one of the biggest frustrations that I see on the ground from a recruitment perspective is that candidates feel like they're out of touch and they're not given that love. It's like, hey, I'm working with you. We had a chat. You told me about the role. You sent me forward. I know I haven't heard from you in 2 weeks. And then what becomes the challenge? So say, as a recruiter, obviously we want to place every person in every job. That's the dream. So now we're at 2 weeks. I've sent 5 candidates, haven't heard anything back. What if now the client is MIA and I can't get in touch with the client, or they might be on leave or on holiday or something? So now I still have candidates forward. I haven't gotten in touch with my candidates, and I don't know what's happening with the client. The client could just ghost me. And I mean, it happens. It's a reality. Sometimes people just don't get back to you because they don't want to give you the bad news, or they might have hired the role and just forgot to tell that recruiter about those 5 candidates, or there's a number of different things that could happen. So ultimately, yes, follow up with your recruiter, and keep on top of them. If they haven't gotten in touch with you, definitely an email or such is completely reasonable to expect.
Awesome. Super helpful. Great. Thank you very much for the question, Joan. We do have some time. If there are any other questions, feel free to throw them in the chat. Just want to really quickly say, if you enjoyed this, if you want to take part in future live videos, we're going to continue running the Visto show every Friday, 11 a.m. Eastern time, right now on our Facebook page and in our YouTube channel as well. So keep an eye out for that. If you need help with Canadian immigration, sign up to our free portal, visto.ai, visto.ai, and you can learn all about getting PR in Canada, study permit, work permit, all that good stuff. Adam, thank you very much for coming on the show. Joan also says thanks very much for your response. So we thank you for that. We'll give it another minute to see if anybody else has a specific question for Adam or for myself. But Adam, if people are looking to get in touch with you, learn a little bit more about your company, or just follow you, or just say hey or thank you, where do you recommend that they go?
Yeah, so you can check us out at northtechnologypeople.ca. You can also find me at adam@northtechnologypeople.ca is my email address. I love helping the community. I love that since I founded North Technology People as my own business, I'm really focused on community and honestly helping people. I like the term business karma. If I'm doing positive and kind of adding value to the community that I work in and that I represent and I'm a part of, my name's going to get out there. People are going to start seeing that there is a difference between businesses. There is a difference in the levels of recruiters that there are out there. There are going to be bad recruiters. There are going to be great recruiters. If we're adding value to the community, if we're genuinely trying to help people, like I said, good things will happen, good things will come. I just say to kind of everybody who is looking for work and struggling, this is not a forever thing. My mantra for 2020 has been, Adam, don't think about what's happening next month. Don't think about what's happening next year. Get yourself through today, man. Just focus on what can I do today? How can I add value to my community today? Take away the small victories we have. I think often in life, people just get caught up with all the bad. You turn on CP24 or CNN or whatever news channel you broadcast, and it's never, I joke with my girlfriend, Sarah, I say, oh, we'll put on the good news this morning, and it's like, 1,000 people died today. There was a school that was bombed. It's never good news. So I think in our personal lives, we really need to take especially in the job search, take the small victories. If it is a no, really try and understand why. As I said, sometimes you're not going to get that feedback. But really try and push for it, I would say. And then use that information in your search. So moving forward, every candidate that I have do a code test now, I'm going to say, hey, make sure you add that README file because it might not be mentioned in the code test, but it's what's going to separate you from the candidates that do not provide it. Again, it's the extra work, but more often, and I mean, I'm sure this is true in life as it is in recruitment, in your job, sometimes it is those little extra things that make all the difference. Stay positive. This isn't a forever thing. Let's just get 2020 done. Things are slowing down generally. So I'd say if you are applying for roles, probably not going to expect too much back in the next couple of weeks. In saying that, we've still got stuff on the go, which is awesome, and I have clients that are still actively hiring, which is great. But yeah, it is tough. We're all in this together too, and I think that's been one of the positives, I guess, from COVID. It's really kind of brought people together and made people realize that, hey, we are, all humans at the end of the day. We all have to deal with this pretty difficult situation. It's been a real test of people's resolve. There have been some great things that happened. There have been some positives to take from this. So yeah, just keep on. Happy to help. Adam at northtechnologypeople.ca. Reach out to me. I'm happy to jump on a call with anybody. If you want tweaking your CV, I can share some samples of what those great, short, concise one-page CVs look like. Obviously, can't share the candidate details, but I'll send you, kind of black out some details and such. And yeah, just do those little extra things that other people aren't doing. And I think, as I said, this isn't forever. Things will get better. 2021's around the corner, and I think there's a lot of exciting things for next year to kind of bring forward. So yeah, best of luck to everybody out there, and hit me up. I'm happy to. You can also find me on LinkedIn too, Adam Delgado. I'm the guy out the front of the Lagavulin distillery, pointing going like this.
Awesome. Great advice for those looking for work. Great life advice for all of us to end off the year. Adam, really appreciate it. Sweta as well says thank you so much. Sweta, thanks for tuning in. Joan, thanks for tuning in and for the comments. And everybody else, I see we got some other people hanging out. Maybe they didn't have any questions, but we do appreciate everybody tuning in. We hope you found it useful. If you did tune in late and you want to watch the entire video, the full session will be posted live on our Facebook page and on our YouTube channel as well, so check that out. Adam, thank you again for coming on the show. We really appreciate it.
You're very welcome, Josh. Take care of yourself, mate. Happy holidays, everyone. And yeah, stay positive. We'll get through this together.
Awesome. Thanks, everybody. Again, don't forget, check out visto.ai, visto.ai, if you are interested in getting some free help with immigrating to Canada. Have a great rest of your Friday. Have a great weekend, Adam. Thanks again for coming on the show.
No problems, Josh. Take care, mate. Cheers.